I want to thank those of you who have subscribed to my channel, those of you who watch my videos, those of you who take in the information and offer positive feedback and support, even those of you who have feedback on my editing style. I do appreciate that. Whatever I can do to help you stay engaged and to hear the message, I will do that, because it's very important that this message gets out. In this video today, I am talking to you about how oppression, or how white supremacy lives within the oppressed. And a lot of us, we think that just because we're starting to wear our natural hairs, or because we're starting to, I don't know, whatever it is that you believe that you are starting to do, some of you may think that there's no work that needs to be done, while we remain dependent on a government who is constantly making changes to our human rights, to our story, re-editing our story to fit their narrative. It's very important, this message, because we don't have another 160 years to sit and wait on this and wait for somebody else to come and lead the way. I am trying to help us see individually how to come together collectively, to think with a collective mindset. Without further ado, here is today's presentation. Chattel slavery ended on day 1, and on day 2, we were breaking bread with our captors. The mindset was not revenge for the so-called FBAs. The mindset was not, let's create a plan to take back our land for the so-called Aboriginal Black Indian. No, the mindset quickly evolved into fight for equality, capitalism, and acceptance inside of racism, white supremacy. We soon traded in our afros for waves and relaxers to fit into corporate America. Constantly throughout history and present, we have given up our dominance by submitting to their view of superiority. Their view. Why does their views hold more weight than those who are indigenous, the Africans, indigenous to this planet? So we've code switched the African out of us, generation by generation. We once had the whiz, true African infused art into our productions. Jennifer Holliday's Dream Girls, a voice from the ancestors. And today, Cynthia Erivo, proof of what assimilation has done not only to our minds, but our vocal cords as well. No matter how divided our titles are today, every African in America and around the globe uniformly suffers under the same system of racism, white supremacy. Chattel slavery beat inferiority into our minds, the most tragic, horrific event to have ever occurred in human history, happened to the African globally. You've now been convinced that 1865 is Freedom Day, while our minds remains theirs to program by our submission and assimilation. Racism doesn't see our separate statuses and titles we desperately cling on to. It only sees our melanin, and as such, so should we, globally, if we ever plan to take back our minds and rise out of neocolonialism collectively. Fighting for a title without the deed. Those of you who hard-headedly fight for your title of Aboriginal, Native, Black Indian, Indigenous to America have yet to fight for the deed to the land of which you claim to own. For over 400 years, this government, which you have submitted to, stole the deeds and left you with a meaningless title. What sense does it make to fight for division in a land that you do not own? Colonization has taught you division, has taught you terms such as immigrant. The language you use to selfishly divide from your own heritage is the very same language that has been used to entrap your mind for centuries. So unless you're planning on taking back the deed to the land which was stolen, talk of division within our community is a meaningless and ignorant fight. It's not the land you really want, it's the title under white supremacy. Denying your heritage for the title of a land you have not fought to own is frivolous. Aboriginal and Indigenous are not terms of heritage. They are a marker in time of when a particular group arrived to a particular land. Mangoes, for example, are indigenous to South Asia, particularly northwestern Myanmar, Bangladesh, and northeastern India. Yet the species of the mango emphasis on species of the mango, not the location, is of a flowering plant in the family Anacardiaceae. Very long word to try to pronounce with a lot of syllables thingies going on in there. But most would probably have believed that mangoes were native to Mexico. Mangoes did not actually arrive in the Americas, South America to be exact, until at least the 16th century. They then spread from South America to North America by the 18th century. So what I am trying to point out here is that your identity is not your location in time. It is in fact your bloodline, your species. We are a species. We are not indigenous as in our heritage. Now, we can be indigenous as the original inhabitants of this planet, yes, but that is not our species, okay? They're separate. I'm trying to help us separate that so that we can begin to unify for the purpose that's much bigger at hand rather than the title, okay? So, again, just because the mango has become a staple in many South and North American cultures, it will never erase the mango's true beginnings or its species, its family species, okay? Why Black Americans deny Africa? You deny Africa because white supremacy has not given you permission to accept your heritage. You're waiting for their permission to approve of your intelligence, of everything. They taught you their reverse psychological opinions of you are actually valid, creating an inferior and superior dynamic between us and them. They taught you titles, racial hierarchy, and race. They taught you to stay silent, the silent generation to the present, to keep them comfortable because racism is just, oh my gosh, it's just too uncomfortable for us to discuss. And we say, okay, we want to make you comfortable, so we submit. They taught you shame of Africa instead of pride. They taught you that they can teach you. They taught you to view ignorance, them, as the teacher, and wisdom, Africa, as the student. When you selfishly state, I've got my own problems to worry about, referring to Africa, while lacking the numbers needed to end oppression in America, you vibrate with a low consciousness and an individualistic state of mind. America roughly contains 340 million people. We as Black African people in America make up roughly 42 million of that. And with our divided titles, that 42 million can be broken down and divided even further. You are ashamed of Africa. You are disgusted by your own heritage because you have allowed ignorance to be your teacher. When a human takes pride in something, even something they do not own, they make sure to broadcast it all over social media. Example, that 2022 Porsche, which actually belongs to your best friend's mama's boyfriend's bank. You are prideful to claim the identity of European, which, by the way, after tracing the bloodline back to the beginning of Europe, you will find the first Africans. You cannot outrun your DNA. The fact that you admire white supremacy, hoping when you receive your ancestry DNA test results, they'll reveal at least, give me 10% white European, explains how 160 years could go by with us remaining dependent, oppressed, divided, and comfortable with where we are at. Those immigrants. By viewing Africans from Africa and even in the Caribbean as immigrants, we play right into white supremacy's putty. And it's not only us in America believing we're separate and not equal, it's the African who identifies as Dominican, the African in Haiti who denies being African because they were born in Haiti. The harms of chattel slavery were not just a physical one. Chattel slavery left a lasting, generational, mental, and emotional warping of our minds for centuries. What's been done to the African globally by white supremacy can never, ever, ever be repaired by white supremacy. It can only be rebuilt by us with complete unity. White supremacy will not acknowledge the fact that 1444 was the beginning of chattel slavery, and that 2025 is the continuation of a mental colonization. So when you think about reparations, and when we talk about reparations, we need to keep that in mind and not cut ourselves short thinking that 1619 to 1865 or 1865 will suffice. No, we need to start charging interest. And we need to know that we have the right and demand that and not be feared or talked out of what we are owed, because they still view us. The reason why the system which we have submitted to has not been remorseful is because they still view us as 3/5 human. Reparations should also include the fact that, talking about indigenous being the first humans on this planet, we have that bloodline to trace back to Africa. The fact that we have to pay for passports, this land, this earth, this planet, not just America, but the globe was once yours. And you are only fighting for the 10%. You are only fighting for the 10% when you are owed the entire 100. Reparations is a deep topic, but you must know what you are owed in order to fully receive and to take back what you are owed. Stop waiting for white supremacy to give you permission to love the reflection staring back in the mirror and around the globe. Speaking of mirrors, good hair, bad hair. When your loctician tells you to train your hair to be presentable for white supremacy because they won't have us showing up to their corporate companies looking Rastafarian in 2025, we have a mental problem. As I said, in 2025, this conversation is still happening, where we can go natural, but with a condition. There's a condition that comes with that. It has to be maintained and presentable for white supremacy. You are the dominant gene on this planet, and that is an example of us acting in submission because we need those jobs. We don't believe we can build our own job system. We need their jobs. And not only do we need their jobs, we need to be presentable and professional for them. The proof is in your everyday life. It is in the reflection that you see in the mirror. And I am trying to help us step out of that submissive state. Because although you believe that you've gone and gotten your locks, you get your braids, you wear your braids, that you're somehow taking back your identity, but it's still under the condition that it must fit, that it must be acceptable. When we no longer give a damn about what is acceptable to white supremacy, to white corporate, that is when we begin to take back our minds. Even if we come together in small groups, we have to stop being submissive to a system of ignorance. Stop allowing ignorance to be our teacher. When you are going natural, when you are getting locks, and you believe you have to transform your 4C type hair into 3C type hair, are you really truly loving yourself as you are? It's a lot to discuss. This is just a brief breakdown of, not a brief breakdown, but there's so much that goes into this. This is not the only proof that white supremacy lives inside the oppressed, but it is very relevant. It's very relevant to today. And I want to thank those of you who have watched this video all the way through, those of you who have subscribed to my channel, those of you who have been with me, also, from the beginning. If you are still watching it, I really do appreciate your support, because we need this message to get out. We need to start demanding and taking back what we are owed instead of still trying to fit into a system of ignorance which has not yet been remorseful for its past.